Now, Ryder's a West London gangster from Shepherd's Bush. Despite being from London, Ryder had many ties in Chicago. His auntie, Loca D, became the only female in the state of Illinois to be sentenced to life in prison as a juvenile. In 1992, at the age of 15, she would allegedly kill 2 Latin King members and was sentenced to 2 life orders. However, in 2013, the law changed, saying juveniles could no longer be sentenced to life. In 2016, she was resentenced to 63 years at 50%, which meant after spending almost 30 years in prison, she was finally released. Ryder is also cool with Chirac rapper Rondo No. 9, who's a black disciple from the set 600, which has ties to the famous O Block or Parkway Gardens, where rapper King Von resided before ultimately passing. He also has a few songs with Rondo No. 9, becoming the first ever London drill rapper to collab with a Chicago drill rapper. Rondo No. 9 is also seen on camera shouting out Ryder.
Shout out Ryder, man. That way, man. No, rap, man. That L's, man. Man.
Ryder would also collab with Gangster disciple drill artist Killer Kels, who is from the set Brick Squad 069, more knowingly repped by rapper Little Jojo, who sadly passed in 2012. It seems Ryder was destined to go down this path from the jump. Here is a photo of him as a baby with a machine gun placed on his body. Insane when you think about it. Here is him at the age of 11, brandishing a firearm. During the early periods of Ryder's street life, he was a part of a bush gang known as FDA, which stood for F the Authorities. He was a young buck on the streets and his older was known as Tango, real name Sufyan. There were other sets in Shepherd's Bush, and one thing they had in common was they all beefed an area known as Hayes. FDA members would allegedly have an issue with a trapper from Acton, West London known as Iceberg. Now on the 17th of September 2007, Iceberg, real name Daniel Dennis, was shot by gunmen who drove up alongside his black BMW at Brassey Avenue in Acton. The 26-year-old was found by members of the public who called emergency services, but he died in hospital overnight. The alleged gunman who fired the fatal shot was none other than a 10-year-old Ryder. Ryder, along with others, would be arrested but later released. The murder remains unsolved to this day. Ryder even has a song where he refers to this being the first case he caught at the age of 10.
Original SB, I was out here when Westford wasn't. Caught my first case at age 10, ever since then been Nankins.
Now on the 21st of November 2008, a 24-year-old man known as Tugsy, who was a Section 18 member, which is a set in Hayes, was allegedly shot in the chest by Ryder in the alleyway of Cavendish Avenue in West Ealing. Tugsy, real name Jason Johnson, later died from his injuries. Bear in mind, Ryder was 11 at the time and now allegedly had 2 bodies. No one was ever charged for the murder of Tugsy, but a few others were found guilty of perverting the course of justice. One of the many reasons people think Ryder's a killer is due to this show splash verse where he says, "Young killer, knee high," while grabbing and pointing to a young Ryder.
In the cab with my 3-5, young killer, knee high, no traffic, speed light.
On the 25th of March 2010, FDA member Tango was murdered at Victoria Tube Station in London after being stabbed 9 times by a group of youths. 3 teenagers, Obi Enewoke, Christopher Omoregi, and Samson Odegbune were sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder. One of the murderers, Christopher Omoregi, was the older brother of UK rapper Dave.
Broadcast for the first time, this CCTV shows a teenager, samurai sword in hand, heading to Victoria Station. He was one of 20 sixth formers running towards a fight, in which 15-year-old Sofian Belamuadin was killed.
Immediately, the samurai sword was produced and a variety of other weapons, and there was then what I've described as an infantry charge across Terminus Place. The group, including Sofian, who were less well armed and fewer numbers, immediately turned and fled.
It was as Sofian tried to make his escape here at Victoria Station that he stumbled and the group caught up with him. Then, in front of hundreds of commuters, they launched a frenzied attack. In just 12 seconds, he was stabbed 10 times and suffered 20 separate injuries.
I saw one of the attackers had a kind of a long implement in their hand, and they made a kind of a stabbing motion on the boy who was being attacked, and he was trying to get himself up off the floor.
The day before the attack, the police broke up a fight between the teenagers from rival schools. But using Facebook and Instant Messenger, they quickly organised another confrontation. The girl seen here is Victoria Osateku. On the day of the attack, she headed to a shop close to her college and filled her pink bag with kitchen knives later used to kill Sofian. These are the teenagers on a bus before and after the attack. Dozens were to be arrested. This was to be the Metropolitan Police's biggest joint enterprise murder investigation to date. Today, the end of a legal process means this man, Junior Bayode, the last person to be convicted, remains behind bars for manslaughter. These are the faces of the others involved. Some convicted of lesser offences and some of murder. All were sentenced to jail terms of 2 years to life. Sangeeta Maiska, BBC News.
Now Tango, real name Sufyan Bello Moeddin, was the older of Ryder. Ryder would later pay tribute to him in many tracks.
I'm old school like rest up soft. They done to bro, I thought I just killed them. West 12 my blood.
On the 6th of August 2010, in the early hours in Hayes, shots rang out and cars were hit in the crossfire, but nobody was injured. Witnesses reported seeing a motorcyclist and a passenger flee the scene. Police say that all lines of inquiry have been exhausted and the case will only be reopened if new information comes to light. The alleged shooter of the drive-by shooting was none other than Ryder. Now in 2011, FDA members Kid Tanner and Ryder would make the set OBY, which stood for Original Bush Youngers.
Rolling Hayes Town on a gang thing. Any pagan that I see, I ain't ramping. On your estate, that's a mad thing. Obi White West Talk, that's a mad thing.
Now drillers who you may know of today, such as Box 12 and Sav 12, were a part of the Original Bush Youngers. Now within OBY itself, there was a set of the most active drillers who would ride on their ops, known as 8712, also known as the 87s. 8712 were based in Becklow Gardens and White City Estate, W12. It was originally created as 876 in Waterhouse, Jamaica. You may be wondering, what does it stand for? The 87 comes from the 187, which stands for murder, and the 12 comes from the postcode W12. Members are known for repping a black bandana. Now their ops were Hayes, Northolt, West Drayton, St. Raph's, Greenford, Southall and Willesden Green. Fulham and Hammersmith Council even dubbed the 87th the most concerning gang based in Shepherd's Bush on the White City Estate. Ryder wasn't just a known gunman, he would also use his knife. For example, he would stab Willesden Green rapper Blitz, who was of similar age to him. Now the Notting Hill Carnival is an annual Caribbean street festival in London that takes place on August bank holiday weekend. It's known as one of the world's largest street festivals, drawing over 2 million people. The carnival celebrates Caribbean culture through parades, music, food and more. However, it also happens to draw the attention of gang members all over the city looking for their enemies. In August 2011, this would again be the case. FDA member Shotty would allegedly stab a rival gang member. A 12-year-old Ryder would allegedly be present. Shotty was then arrested in West London on suspicion of assault following the stabbing of the 20-year-old man at Notting Hill Carnival. Before being arrested, Shotty would hand his scarf to Ryder, the one you can see in this picture. In 2012, the music back and forth between Hayes and Shepherd's Bush would begin. Rapper Real Raids would release a song titled Out on the Strip, dissing Original Bush Youngers. Not too long after, Ryder, known as BossRyder at the time, would release a song titled Active, boldly dissing Purple Haze with the lyrics.
Hayes Town, they fucking clowns, they know we keep banging.
The beef with Hayes would kick off again. On the 16th of December 2012 at 2 AM on Oxbridge Road, there would be a large group of Original Bush Youngers, including Ryder and Rainer Lane members, chilling together after a party. Hayes members would get the drop and it will soon turn into a 100-man gang fight. Knives were out and there would be a big brawl. Teens were repeatedly stabbed in the streets before dispersing after a Hayes member known as Ranger fired 5 shots, hitting a bystander twice in the legs, while also managing to hit a Rainer's Lane member, leaving him with life-changing injuries. An eyewitness told the Gazette, There were about 100 to 120 of them. About 90% of the males had something in their hands, a bottle or something shiny. It was weird. It would be calm until all of a sudden one group would run at another and there'd be a lot of screaming and shouting. It happened in waves. I couldn't understand what was going on. Then one guy came running with a knife at a group of about 4 or 5 who also had knives. He was running at them and they were moving back until one of the group got behind him and smashed him in the face with a bottle. He dropped to the floor and that's when the group jumped on him and stabbed him. It was all very scary. It was like the riots again. Witnesses say a staff member from Flanagan's pub came out and shouted at the thugs before dragging the injured man to safety inside his premises. Now, with many orders from Shepherd's Bush being locked up, Ryder's authority only grew in the streets. He led by example. He was riding out on all his enemy blocks along with his cousin Sav 12 and then bragging about it on Twitter, either through cryptic or open messages about what he did. On the 20th of September 2013, Ryder and Sav 12 would allegedly go on a stabbing spree in Hayes and stab 3 people just before 9 PM. Allegedly, one of the 3 victims was none other than Hayes rapper Cruiser. At 9:37 PM, Ryder would then tweet 187, which refers to murder, particularly in hip-hop and street culture. This usage stems from California's Penal Code section 187, which defines the crime of murder. Unfortunately for him, all 3 victims would survive. On the 9th of May 2013, Ryder would allegedly spot St. Raf's member Little Sneaky at a party in Wembley and get into an altercation with St. Raf members. It is rumoured that he not only waited, but followed Little Sneaky back to St. Raf's and fired shots hitting both him and Samsam. Nobody knows where this beef between the 2 areas stemmed from, but this is rumoured to be personal beef. As I mentioned earlier, the 8712 gang has roots in Jamaica. During 2015, Ryder would go to Jamaica to cool off due to the level of police surveillance he was getting in London. However, despite the change of scenery, he would be the same Ryder. Now on the 27th of October 2015 in Jamaica, 2 men were at the home of Hugh Roy Anderson in Rock Road, Osborne store, waiting to go to a party when a gunman approached and fired at them. The gunman then fled the scene. The police took the injured men to hospital where both died while undergoing treatment. The alleged gunman was none other than Ryder. Now allegedly, the 87 family was extorting them and they refused to pay up. Ryder would soon after fly back to England. Hayes members would finally catch Sav 12 and Ryder lacking. Sav 12 ran away and left Ryder to get smashed up by the Hayes members. Although Ryder didn't instantly fall out with Sav 12, there would be brewing tension between them. Now during this period, OBY member Box 12 would become close with Nito and B, effectively ending the beef between Bush and Northolt. With external beefs being squashed, internal ones were created. Ryder got word that Sav 12 attempted to chat up his girlfriend and would respond by choking him out. The beef between them was fully on. Ryder was out to get him and anyone close to him. S1, the rapper who you may know from Bush, was very close with Sav 12. Ryder would then shoot up S1's nan's house to send a message.
See, after what happened to man, yeah?
Yeah, I heard still. I tried to call you, but it's like your phone.
Blood.
You know, S1.
No, my man didn't even hit my nothing, fam.
No, but me and him spoke about that. This is what I'm saying.
But alright, cool.
Don't get it twisted. Me and him spoke about it. Because you never said nothing to him.
What?
He found, do you know how he found out? Through me.
Say what, Lord.
And he didn't know. On my mum's life.
However, despite this violation, S1 didn't want to beef Ryder and squashed it. Just goes to show you how feared Ryder was in these streets. As for Sav 12, Ryder and him went their separate ways and never became cool again. Ryder would later catch a knife case and do 1 year in prison. After having a child, he became a lot more mature and would move away from the violence and focus on making money to provide for his family. This brings me to the end of this video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. For uncensored content on my videos, please support my Patreon.